Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Production Walkthrough. This time we're going to be looking at a song of mine called Cognizant Sleep. The idea behind this is to explain to you certain maybe mixing, mastering decisions, EQ decisions, arrangement decisions of the song, why I did certain things, why you might want to drop out certain parts of the song, why you might want to pan things a certain way or structure a song a certain way to give more of an impact. Hopefully I'll be able to cover all of these things and more. Just bear with me. Let me start off by just giving you a snippet. I'm just going to play around at a few parts.
Cognizant Sleep.
So if this song sounds interesting to you, then keep watching. If it doesn't, then check out another video. I've done plenty of other production walkthroughs. This one's more of an aggressive, progressive or electro housey feel. So let's give it a go. I'll start off with drums and percussion. So the song starts out with a lot of these percussive loops that aren't anywhere else in the song. And this just grabs the attention of the listener. Sometimes you might not want to have a really long intro, especially if you're wanting to grab someone's attention who doesn't normally listen to electronic music. I mean, we all understand that deadmau5 can have like a 8-minute intro for his songs, and that's awesome, but not everyone can do that because not everyone's going to be patient enough, especially if they've never heard of you and aren't willing to listen to the entire song. I chopped up and added a bunch of percussive loops that I thought were cool sounding. Let me just show you the beginning. So let's break that down. Drum rack, I just have a kick here. Just have a kick going, a little bit of EQ. I think it has a little bit too much bass. Like, this song was pretty much already mixed and mastered. I'm still maybe touching it up, but for the most part, this is how it's going to sound. There was a bit too much bass, so I decided to turn the bass down and maybe turn up the highs a little bit just to give it more of a punch. You don't always want to boost your bass of the kick just because you want it to sound big and explosive, because sometimes it's going to conflict with other things in the song. So just have this kick going. Then I have these percussive loops. Notice how it's all over the sound field. So this one is to the left, this one's to the right. This one's to the, well, that one's to the left, this one's to the right. So it's just like a continuation of that first one. And this one's in the center. So all together. And then this loop comes in a bit later. Oh, since I am going to remember this right now, I use utilities to turn down the volume of my tracks. If you look at session view here, you'll notice that all of my faders are at unity gain, meaning they're all at the very top. What I like to do is automate these faders. That way, when it comes down to mixing and mastering, I can just go and change the utility volume. I also have a white noise at the very beginning, just fading in. I have a whole separate video of explaining how I do white noise if you're interested in learning about that. Just an EQ, reverb, again utility, some phaser in there sometimes, sidechain compression, and ping pong delay just for some effect. I use analog mostly, but we're talking about percussion, so I'll get back to that later. The beginning of the drums are kind of basic, just 4 to the floor, kick, 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 kick. Nothing too fancy, especially if you want someone to mix your song into another song, if someone's DJing. You don't necessarily want to go too crazy in the very beginning. This second part of the song, I do change up the drums a bit just to add a little bit more excitement. A good thing to practice is never make the same loop sound the same twice. So like the drums, this time I changed it up. It's not too loud, it's just kind of there in the background to add just that groovy vibe feeling to help move the track forward. Always use high pass filters on everything that's not a bass or a kick drum. So all of these are pretty much the same. Maybe a little bit of Camel Crush on this just to add some high frequency content, some distortion. And again, more high pass filters and utilities. So I'll minimize that. The drums continue to evolve as the song goes on. So here the songs are getting a little bit more. Looks like I just added a snare. And here I added some more. Just a cymbal on the kick, which is seeming to get pretty popular in big room house, so I thought it might be interesting just to throw that in. I usually don't do that. Again, here you want it to go back and forth, so I would take it away and put it back every chance that I could just to make it sound like the track continued to evolve. It's actually muted here just for the sidechain compression effect. Usually I have an invisible track that triggers the sidechain, but this time I decided not to use it. I just muted the drum rack so you can't hear it, but it's still causing the pumping of the sidechain. So take a listen, see if you can hear it. Let me take off the drums, maybe you'll hear the difference. You hear that? I put it in and out. Over here, the drums again. Kind of the same thing with the snare and the cymbal. But of course, the very first time that when the drop comes in, it's just the kick, and then it evolves into that. I have some reverse snares that I rendered down too. Just something very subtle, doesn't have to be loud. Really cool effect. Do this in every song. Even if you don't necessarily have the snare, it's just cool to have there in the background. But it adds a big impact when you actually do hear the snare. At least I think it sounds really cool. You would do that in Ableton by just dragging the snare. Well, what I do is drag the snare into an audio track, go down here and just clicking reverse, and it'll just reverse the waveform. Line it up to where you want it, and there you go. It's a lot easier to line it up this way than to just use like a sampler or put it in a drum rack. So I think we covered the drums for now. I'm just going to minimize those. Let's move on to next, I guess the organ group. I have some organ sounds in there. So let's solo these. think one of the biggest reasons I did this is because I needed some mid frequency content. Some of that low mid right down there. There wasn't enough, and this just helped bring it up. Use that for some of your mixing decisions. If you feel like maybe you don't have enough mids or high frequency content, you might want to just add an instrument in that frequency range. You want them to be cohesive and work together as a group to make your track sound full. Let me see, I'm just using an operator for that, but I called it organ just because I felt like it sounded like an organ. That's the low, and then I just kind of duplicated it, brought it up an octave. Or several octaves, it looks like, 2 octaves. That one's panned to the right, the low organ's panned to the left. Another cool tip, pretty much do that with everything. I like to duplicate things a lot and hard pan them. Let me see how I made that. I just used a triangle wave and a sine wave. Added some spread. That looks like it's it. I didn't really do much. Of course, add a high pass filter in there always. Looks like I did that for the subgroup as well. I don't know. I guess I didn't need to. But enough about that. Let's move on to what's next. And that seems to be the mini brute bass line.